Now it's time to roll out your dough for your cookies or gingerbread houses. When you first pull it out, it's going to look like this. Now you're going to want to pull it out about 10 to 15 minutes before you actually start rolling to let it warm up a little bit. It'll make it a little bit easier to deal with. Now once you have it warmed up a little, you're going to take a chunk off and just start to work it in your hands and make sure that it's not crumbling too bad. If it's crumbling really bad, it's because it's really dry, and it just means you need to work with it a little bit more until the oils in it start to work and keep it all together. Now, if you have a piece that's really dry, this one is, then what you might want to do is take some fresher dough, if you've made any other batches, and take pieces off of each and mix them together, and that'll help hold them together like that. So that's actually what I've had to do with this batch here. I have ones that I made about a week ago and ones I made 2 nights ago. And the ones I made 2 nights ago are perfect. However, the ones I made a week ago are very dry. Now, the longer you leave it in there, the more dry it's going to get. That's why I suggest not going more than a couple of days. Otherwise, it does just get to be really hard to deal with. Now, I have my baking mat, silicone baking mat, my rolling pin, and some wax paper. You're going to want to keep the wax paper handy because it's going to get worn out as you're rolling out the dough. I've taken a little bit of wheat flour and sprinkled it across my rolling mat. If your dough is really moist, then you're going to want to use more than what I have. Since mine's so dry, I've used very little. For my pattern, I've taken a vanilla folder and I've just cut out the pieces. Once I figured out how big I wanted, I measured out the pieces and cut them out. Now, depending on what kind of house you're going to make, you may want to try to set it up first with something like this, or if you're doing a really big house that's going to need a lot of weight held up on it, then maybe with styrofoam pieces. It depends on how creative you're getting. Last year and the years before, I've actually done this triangle piece as a separate piece. This year I'm trying to do it all together to make it a little bit easier to hold together, hopefully. We'll see how it works out. I'm also this year going to try to do chimney pieces. So I have the sides that will go across the roof and the sides that will go along the roof to do a chimney. Now, once you have the dough where it's not crumbling anymore, you're going to take pieces about this big. You just want to smash it a little bit flat in your hands and lay it on your board. You'll lay about 3 across where they overlap a little bit. You don't want to put too much on here because it is going to spread out and it needs room to spread out. Then you're going to take your wax paper and set it over top of it and use that under your rolling pin, because as you see, it starts to roll up. It sticks to the paper a little bit, but the paper will peel right off. It will not peel right off of your rolling pin. So once you have it rolled out, you're going to want to roll it back and forth and in all different angles to kind of help give you a lot of space to put your pattern in there. Now, I've already rolled mine out because you actually have to pretty much stand up to do this. It's not going to be easy just sitting down with it. Once you've taken your pattern, you're going to use, I have a butter knife here, and you don't want to cut across because that'll rip the dough underneath the pattern and cause the edges to be all jagged. What you want to do is just perforate it, and as you're perforating the edges, you can go back if you see any pieces that are really big chunks that are still connected. Pull away all your extra dough from there that you can, any of the little sides. Then what you're going to do is take your pattern and just kind of doing quick motions, go underneath the piece. I do this with a pattern instead of a spatula because a spatula most of the time is going to be too thick, and what it's going to do is it's going to smush the piece up together. So once you've got it off the pattern, you can put it on a baking sheet that I've again dusted with a little bit of powder of the wheat flour, or if you have a spray, it doesn't really matter, whichever one you want to use. They're really not too bad about sticking. Now you're going to do that, and then you'll cut out whatever pieces you can. I usually like to try to get as many out of one rolled out piece as I can before I actually put them all together and try to roll it out again. So what I'm actually going to do with the rest of this is I'm just going to take my cookie cutter, and for a cookie, what I like to do is get out as many of them as I can, like I said, and unfortunately I'm not going to get too many, and then you peel away the extra dough. I always try to peel away the extra dough before actually peeling up any of the pieces, because it'll be okay if you rip the extra dough. If you start trying to rip the pieces and it's still connected, then you're going to have to redo them. So we're going to pick it up and put it on there. Now normally I do make my cookies a little bit thicker than I make the pieces of the gingerbread house. Now one of the other benefits of having the wax paper is that when you have the wax paper, when it's rolled out, once you think you've got it as thick as you want it, which you can test it out with a toothpick, I sometimes use the tip of my knife to try it and just put a couple holes in it to see how thick it is. Once you think it's as thick as you want, you can actually roll your hand across the paper and you'll feel any dips or slants where it's getting thinner or thicker, and that way you can know where you need to roll out a few more places, or if you need to rip off a piece and put it in that spot if it's way too thin and if it feels like it's a hole there. Also, if you're getting to a part where maybe you just didn't have enough on this side to get the tip, then again you can break off a piece of the extra dough that you have somewhere. It'll pretty much be almost as thick as you want. You can just fold it up a little, overlap it on whatever dough you already have on there, and then start to roll it out real carefully so that you're only really thinning out that dough and forming it into there until you have enough that you can cut your shape out. So once you have your shape and everything cut out, what I do is I bake it for 8 minutes. Now if you're doing the cookies, I bake the cookies for just 8 minutes, and that's about all they need, and they won't be too crispy. Now if I'm doing a house, I bake it for 8 minutes, and then I take a spatula and very carefully, and as flat as you can get the spatula, do it and take the pieces, flip them over, and then I bake them again for another 8 minutes. So then what we're going to do is you have royal icing. Royal icing is egg yolks. It's also going to be cream of tartar and vanilla, along with powdered sugar. I'll have the recipe down there. You're going to mix this up in hopefully a standing mixer, because it needs to mix for about 7 to 10 minutes on a low speed until it's done, and it will kind of stand peaks on its own. So all I do is, this is actually a shoe top box that I've taken and put oil over it so that I have a nice clean finish on it. I've taken the pieces and I've actually run a little bit of the icing on the bottom of them, and then on the sides that I want to connect, I have a can that I use to help hold it up until it's dry. So we're going to take the bottom like this, and what I use in my icing is just a Ziploc bag where I've cut the tip of it, and then that way I have a nice point that I can do the sides with. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it up the sides of the house that I've already got built, and then all you have to do is just try to fit it together. Now when they come out, if you're really picky, you can start the edges on them and get them all done, but it is going to be a little bit difficult. They don't always bake exactly right. So I'll be back with the finished house.